Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Really thank you all for coming. Last session on Friday afternoon, we thought we'd be talking to each other. We do that a lot. I'm Karen Talley. I'm a user support analyst. You know the person that wears all the different hats? Well, that's me. I do teaching, I do user support, I do a whole lot of things at UNM School of Law. And my co-presenter is my manager, Cyndi Dean. We're both Lobos, as you see. Capturing students. That's what a web page should be all about. All of our schools have probably either laid out a sizable amount of money or a sizable amount of tech time in order to build our web pages. And with good reason. Your website is crucial, as this may be the first impression made on a prospective applicant. A good site can gain students, and we've found that a poor site will lose them very quickly. We wanted to know what students look for in a web page because we were redesigning our website. So we went out on the web to look for research about what students look for when they're doing internet research. And there is data out there on the web about what students look for. But there was no data about our students, which are graduate and professional students. And so we became concerned that the data that was out there really didn't apply to us, and here's what we decided to do about that. We researched it ourselves. We designed a survey questionnaire instrument, if you're into statistical nomenclature, and we sent it to current graduate and professional students at 11 different schools. We were trying to determine how to target our student population through our website. Our registrar participated in this survey, and she knows everybody everywhere. So the schools where she didn't know somebody, our manager knew somebody, and we actually distributed them to people that we knew, asked them to pass them out in class and give the surveys back to us. We had a 55% return rate on our surveys because of that, and we think that's pretty amazing. Pearson's chi-square formula, for those of you that are statisticians, please don't ask any questions at the end of this about that, was used to test for significance. Once the survey was prepared, we administered it to a jury of 8 people, UNM students. And in selecting this jury of 8, we paid particular attention to get a range in 3 things: age, gender, and ethnicity. Using their suggestions, we refined the questions and also the appearance of the survey. And that's an interesting little story about how we changed the appearance of the survey, because with each question, we originally had a little round dot. And to answer the question, they filled in the little round dot. Well, we found out that university students are so used to bubble tests that they were spending an inordinate amount of time during the survey, which only had 28 questions. It was taking them forever to fill it out because they were coloring in those dots as carefully as they could so that they would be graded correctly. So we redesigned the survey. We put check boxes and asked them and gave them instructions at the first of it to check off their answers. There were 28 questions on it, and basically the questions could be divided into 3 areas. We had 5 questions on general demographics. We had 2 questions for just 7% of the questions on why did you select the school that you're attending, and the rest of the questions all go into a big category of what is your computer use? What is your level of computer use from, do you use an online application, to your overall computer skills. So this is what we were looking at with our students. As far as demographics, in the first day in the plenary, we talked about demographics. It's very important to know who were the people that we were talking to. 68% of them were 30 years of age or younger. 65% of them were Caucasian. A larger percent of those who responded to the survey were female rather than male. Most of them were in the first year of graduate or professional school studies. And here's an interesting statistic that will come up later. We asked them to rate their internet skill level. Now remember, most of them are in their first year of school. A whopping 94% said they're average or above at using the internet. I wonder if we gave the same survey to our staff or faculty at our law school, if we get that level of internet use. So what we're talking about here is people who use the internet and use it well. These are the people that we're going to be talking about. All right, another cartoon. I did the analysis using your bad assumptions. Then I applied your flawed logic and arrived at your predetermined answer. Shall I begin disillusioning the team? And the response to that, this needs a pie chart. Of course, all sorts of statistics need to be judged in the way that it was done, and so we're trying to prove our statistics to you and to tell you what needs to be on your web. We hope that our assumptions are correct. Hopefully our logic is not flawed, and believe me, we do have some charts. One of the things that we found when we were doing our research that we did not expect was that there was a significant difference between students who were in a top-ranked university versus students who were attending a second-tier university. We had not really built that into our original assumption, but found that this was true, and so we found that there was a significance to that. And in order to decide what is a top-ranked university, we used the center at the University of Florida. And they do a ranking. The URL is given there. They rank students on 9 different characteristics. And if they rank universities, if the university falls within the top 25 nationally on at least one of those 9 characteristics, then they consider it a top 25 school. So they're the ones that we use to say, well, these respondents were attending a top 25 school, these respondents were using a second-tier school. We had 2 of the 11 universities that we received responses from that fell into the top 25. One was a private school and one was a public school. Here's the things that we wanted to find out, things that we felt would help us when we were building our website. Number 1, did you use the internet to research information about graduate and professional programs? We're going to touch on all 4 of these, but we're going to go into number 1 in a little more detail. Interesting down here in the yellow. 68% of our respondents did internet research to select the school that they were attending when they took our survey. That is a whopping amount. If your web page is not up to date, if you don't have good information, if your students can't find the stuff that they're looking for on your web page, they may not attend your school. Now, it's also interesting that of the other percent, 25% did not do internet research for one great big huge reason. They were close to the school that they chose to attend, so they didn't have to go on the internet. So you see a very small number of people who did not do internet research. We tested internet research against 9 different variables for significance. Some of the variables were not statistically significant. 5 of them were. Here are the variables that we tested against, and here are the ones which we found had significance. Number 1 was age. Younger students more likely to have done internet research. Number 2, first-year students versus third-year students. Doesn't this track with the great big huge boom in internet use recently? A big bubble of people using the internet. You're a 4th-year student in a graduate school, or you're a 3L. No, at the time that you entered school, you didn't do research, but a lot more students are now. Expert computer users were more likely to have done internet research. Now remember, that included 94% of our respondents considered themselves expert computer users. Daily users of the internet were, of course, more likely to use it to do research on a school. And an interesting one, if you were currently enrolled in a top 25 school, you probably did research on schools before you chose that one. I won't go into all of those in greater detail, but I do want to mention age, because there was a dramatic drop-off. Younger students use the internet more, but use decreases steadily with age. Second thing that we were looking at, if an online application was available, did you use it to apply to your school? Let me give you the definition of an online application. It was not a downloadable form. Okay, if you have on your website a PDF form that I can download, print out, fill out by hand, or fill out on a typewriter, or somehow fill out, and mail or fax or send to your university in some way, that is not what we considered an online application. For these purposes, an online application was something on your website that I could fill out there, put all the information in, click a button, and it was immediately sent to your school. That's an online application. And so the question was, if it was available, did you use it to apply? And the answer was, almost a third of the students did apply that way, 29%. They gave us a variety of answers why they did not use it if they did not, and it was kind of interesting, some of the answers. Some thought it was more professional to have a paper copy, some thought it was easier on paper, and so forth. So these are the people who applied online and who did not. Looks to us like maybe we should stop printing hard copies on expensive paper and just put it up there on the website. But we wanted to know what variables were significant about filling out an online application. Who did that? Who applied using online applications? Daily users of the internet. Users who found websites helpful. Users who were accustomed to requesting information from the web. And if you are with a top 25 ranked school, you should know that your students are more likely to apply using an online application. Third question that we were dealing with: why did you select the particular school that you are now attending? We gave them a list of 13 choices and asked them to rank their 3 most important choices out of that group of 13. One of the 13, I should mention, was other. Okay? And out of the 13, 6 were chosen by everybody. You see, we have this broken down again into top 25 students versus second-tier students. And the top 25 used an entirely different set of criteria to choose their school. First of all, they felt it was very important that the school have national ranking. Second, since they were attending a top 25 school, they thought it was important what financial aid package was available to them. That makes sense, doesn't it? And thirdly, the strength and reputation of the faculty. Now, those who did not attend a top 25 school, their primary reason for choosing their school was that it was close to their family. Tied in with that, possibly, is the fact, the next two reasons, tuition and fees and in-state tuition. So those were the reasons that they chose their school. But remember, we asked them to choose from a list of 13 possibilities, and these same students, the students in what we would call second-tier universities, also chose the same other variables: national ranking, financial aid package, and strength or reputation of the faculty. And if you look, that those were 7% all the way across for second-tier university students, where in-state tuition was 10%, so there wasn't a great big break there. And these are what they told us that they used to select their schools.
Can I ask a quick question? Did anyone select other?
Did anyone select other?
Out of the 13, one was other, right?
I honestly don't recall.
Was it a real low number, though?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they were just, nothing that had statistical significance in other. Yeah. Our final question focused on the important items that they thought were important to find on a school's website. So if you're interested in what should be on your school's website, this is coming from graduate and professional students who are telling us what they thought was important, and we gave them a list of 17 that they chose from. And at this point, I'm going to turn the rest of the presentation over to Cyndi.
Without looking in your handouts, because I know that you can cheat, let me just throw it out to you. What would you have guessed are the things that they would want to find on your website? Oh, come on, I know it's 4, but degree programs, tuition, someone said. What else? Financial aid? Course offerings. Contact information. Can you kind of elaborate on contact information for me?
That's what I would want to know. Address and phone numbers, I guess, of admissions if you're looking to be admitted, and just how to contact people, maybe people's names.
Okay. Does anyone interpret contact information any differently than that?
Just even the email address.
Email address of
any of those people.
Okay. Any other interpretations? And I'll tell you why. I'm not picking on you.
Well, it turns out that I end up being a contact person, because even though we have the contact people for admissions and online applications and stuff, my name is at the bottom of the first page.
Okay.
And keep writing to me saying, please send me a package and stuff.
Are you a web coordinator or?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first let me tell you how we came up with the items. We looked at our website and picked out what we had already decided were the most important things, because of course that's what you put on your homepage. And then we asked our jury students, so we came up with a pretty comprehensive list. Then we asked the jury students, what did we forget? Okay, and then we sent it out. So there were 17 items to choose from.
Incidentally, I didn't say this. Let me add that as part of your packet handout, you will see the survey at the back.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why we wanted you to have a handout, because we actually did this presentation elsewhere, and one of the real common questions was, well, can I get a copy of your survey? And so rather than have it out on the survey out on the internet for the world to see, we don't have any more, but it will be out on the CALI website. I'm not sure I want to put the survey out there, but if you'll email either one of us, I'd be happy to just email you a copy of it. Okay, so here's what here's what they picked. And again, we looked at the top 25, the top-ranked schools versus the second-tier school, which really sounds kind of discriminatory when we say it that way, but it was a variable that we really hadn't thought about. And as you can see, overwhelmingly, the students at the top 25 schools wanted to see the degree programs provided. 24%, that's a pretty large number. And then they selected contact information and curriculum information at 17%, so those were pretty high. And as you can see, the other students selected curriculum information, admission deadlines, tuition and fees, and their fourth selection was the degree programs provided. So their fourth was very much in line with their top three, and then it fell off significantly after that. So I think that we can say with pretty much a certainty that these are the things that you want to be emphasizing. Now, the fourth one on the students at the top 25 schools was the admission deadlines, but it's only at 9%. And there's quite a bit of jump between the 17% and the 9%. I'll tell you why I asked about the contact information. When everybody does a survey, of course, you know exactly what you're asking and what you mean by a question. And when we said contact information, we interpreted exactly like everybody else in the room, a generic kind of, admissions, email, phone number, whatever it is, but we were kind of thinking generically of school contact. Well, when we started analyzing the data, we had a very good graduate student who helped us with the data, and then we talked to some of the jury students. They had interpreted it as a way to contact faculty. And isn't that interesting? Because that's also the reason that the students at the top 25 school selected their school. They said that the national reputation of the faculty. So, it was really an interesting point for us that we had intended one thing, and what we were going to emphasize wasn't really what they were after at all. And I also thought that this tuition and fees on the students at the top 25 university, that only 4% really cared what they were, but yet the financial aid package is one of the reasons why they selected their school. So, they don't really care what it is, they just want to know how they're going to pay for it. Yeah?
If you were going to do this again, would you break that contact information into two different categories then?
Yep. We really considered this a pilot study. We would like to expand this and maybe do a paper on it, but we needed a starting point, but we will definitely refine it if we go that route.
Did you provide any guidance on the difference between curriculum information and degree programs provided in terms of the difference of what that meant for prospective students would be?
We did not. And in fact, it's interesting again because I've been trying to decide why is the degree programs provided so much more important to the students at the top 25 schools as opposed to the second-tier schools. That, to me, was the interesting question as opposed to how did they interpret it. And I don't know. Does anyone have a theory? Yeah?
You asked graduate students in general?
Right. This survey went out to both graduate. It went out to some law schools and other professional schools. We have kind of a mixture of contacts.
For law school students, and I know I'm looking at my LLM, and that when I got to the LLM point, it's the top schools that tend to offer more focused and LLM programs in general. So that would be a much greater concern for me, past the JD point. So if you had a bunch of LLM students and maybe other students, into that. When I did my undergraduate studies too, there were only like 5 schools that had the degree program I wanted in the first place, and that was very important.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if you could delineate that data so that you could see what the actual just from law students would be, because in certain like in business schools, we have an MBA in e-commerce and MBA.
Right.
In which case, degree program is much more critical than curriculum information. I was just curious because we just finished redesigning our website, and that to us became a very blended, fuzzy area for
Oh, really?
Trying to figure out what was more important to provide in terms of degrees versus curriculum.
Tell you what, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And picking up on that, concentrations. Our school has just developed concentrations. These are not like an LLM, but a concentration within the JD program. And some schools do have reputations for health law, environmental law, concentrations. So again, distinguishing them from just the general curriculum, where you can actually get a certificate or specialize, might be important in emphasizing in the website.
I tell you what, I'll make you all a deal.
Yeah.
We'll redo this survey if all of your law schools will participate. We did have I posted to Technoids. Those of you who read Technoids, probably doesn't surprise you too much that I posted. And I asked for law schools, and it turns out my contacts were typically not in law, but the registrars were, and I think a whopping 2 people from law schools volunteered to help. And maybe I wasn't asking the right audience, but I would have liked to have, had. But then you get that bias towards law schools, and really we wanted a more well-rounded look. I know that our focus here is law schools, but we were really, the registrar was also interested in looking at graduate schools. So. Whoops, this is backwards, and it's kind of hard to remember. So another question that we asked them was about online search techniques. We wanted to know how they actually found the information that they were looking for. We asked them if they used a college directory site. We came up with 9 of them that have a graduate school component: Princeton Review, gradschools.com, there's 7 others. We asked them if they used a general search engine, Yahoo, Google, Excite, whatever, or did you go directly to the school's website? And we told them that they could only pick one of the 3. So, and I just have to say thanks to Karen for making these slides so pretty. She really did a great job, didn't she, with all this, the great pie charts, and it was all her. So here's you can see it's a real tight race between the general search engine and directly on the school's website. And the college directory only came in at 11%. And in fact, of the 3, and I'll tell you which ones they were Princeton Review, gradschools.com, and Peterson's. And none of them had more than 4%, which is pretty small. But on the other hand, 4% is 4%. So my theory on the general search engine is if I'm looking for a school and I don't know their URL, what are you going to do? You're going to go to Google and you're going to type in, Appalachian State Law or whatever. And that's my theory about how they're using the search engine. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I don't know. It was kind of interesting on the college directory sites. Maybe all of you know this, but I didn't realize until I started looking at this data that all of that information, of course, comes from us and typically from the admissions officers. And in our case, on 2 of them, the information about us was just totally wrong. It had a contact that had left the law school. It had a phone number that was wrong. It said we don't have a clinical law program, which we do. There was no information on technology. And so I guess the bottom line is, even though it was only 4% or 11% of our students that are using that stuff, if that data isn't any good, you're missing a place to sell yourself. Yeah?
If you do the survey, again, it might be interesting to ask that if they click general search engine, ask them what did they use to search them. Because obviously if they put in the words law school, they're going to get thousands of hits.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? The lucky schools that hit the top 20 are the ones that are going to get looked at.
Yeah.
Now, as that other lady over there was talking about areas of concentration, if they said law schools, environmental law or something, then, that's something a little different again, too. So it'd be interesting to see how they're trying to categorize that search.
Yeah. The problem with that is you can't really analyze that. You can't run a statistic on it. So, yeah, we could just kind of have it. That's why we hated to have those other things, because what does it really say? But you're right, it would be very interesting to know what terms they're using. Yeah?
I know it's not a college directory site, but did you consider U.S. News and World Report?
No.
You might want to repeat the question.
Wait, well, no, let me look. I don't think that we included it, but I do have the list here. No. College Choice, CollegeNet, Council of Grad Schools, Embark, gradschools.com, GradView, Peterson's, Princeton, and schoolguides.com. Those are ones that really emphasize the graduate. Yeah, you're right. A lot of people use that. Okay.
How often does the webmaster submit the site to the search engine?
We use AdWeb, and we probably don't do it as often as we should.
You should be doing it every 60 days.
It's 60? Okay. Well, that falls. I would
say if you their stats, heard about that.
Okay. Yeah. I would guess that we're doing it once a quarter. Probably not often enough, especially when you're using a tool like that makes it so easy. right, and then we asked about how about the use of graphics. Was that important to you? And how easy, this was kind of subjective, I thought, how easy was it to find information that you were looking for on the school's website? And really, surprisingly, at least surprisingly to me, maybe because I'm kind of more technical, 68% of the students said that the use of graphics was really important, which really surprised me because when we did our jury, I talked to a gal, well, I talked to all of them, of course, but I talked to a gal who had done extensive research, and she told me that if a site was very graphic-oriented or took very long to load, that was it, she's out of there, and she wasn't going to go back. And so it's interesting that you have to weigh that with the fact that 68% are saying, yeah, it's important, but, you know, on the other hand, they're very impatient. Also, another comment about the use of graphics. One student who's multiracial said that he didn't really care about the use of graphics, but the use of pictures of people was extremely important to him. So he didn't really care what the site looked like as long as it showed a lot of diversity, because that's what he was looking for. You've probably read the studies. There's a real good book, Jacob Nielsen, Designing Web Simplicity, I think is the name of it. Usability, anyway, is what it's about. And he talks about bailout rate, where bailout rate is defined as the number of people who don't wait for a full page to load. They're just out of there. And they're saying that 7 to 10% is the average bailout rate on a well-designed page, and that's one that loads in about 10 seconds. And it jumps up to about 25 to 35% bailout rate if it takes longer than that to load. So that kind of fits in what the students are saying, but does that statistic surprise anyone?
Did you ask
it does
what
not.
kind of hardware any of these people were using? Or kind of internet provider or any of that?
No, we really didn't. We just said access to the internet.
Because I mean, I think we all go through this with this graphics, and you know, I think a lot of us have been basing it on perhaps the students. You don't want them to bail out if they don't have good equipment at home. And I think that's
Right.
probably changing with DSL.
Yeah, I don't know. We're in such a rural area in New Mexico. You know, we still have that big digital divide in our part of the world. I personally don't. I live in the mountains. That's right. That's right. And in fact, it wasn't. Although.
I think that's right. It's a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's an important part. And then I asked about the easy access to needed information. And again, 63% of the students said that 75% of us. Or 75% of the schools, the sites, had easy-to-find information. And they were saying any more than 2 clicks, that's it. They're not going to go past that. Maybe 3 if they're really looking for something, but 2 clicks is about max, yeah.
But that's where your graphics actually come into play, because if they're not too fancy, but clear enough where they can understand everything and see everything, that probably draws them in. I mean, we see that just like using Lexis and Westlaw. They both have graphics, they're easy to use. The Lexis is not as long to load. And so they prefer Lexis all of a sudden, where 5 years ago they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we did ours, we had focus groups that looked at different designs as we went through the evolution of our new site. One of the things they said was the delineation between graphics and images. Is if the site is graphically pleasing, was separated from actual photograph usage on the site. And there was a big anti-photograph on the site because of the download.
Okay.
But there was much more interest in making sure the site was pretty to look at in terms of color use and placement and all that kind of stuff. And that feeds kind of into that Lexis Westlaw look. So we moved to templates in Dreamweaver and took out a lot of the images. So our site is not image heavy.
Isn't that interesting?
It's graphic heavy in terms of design focus. So that was something that emerged to us. That's why 68 doesn't surprise me in terms of the graphics push.
I'm really glad that everybody's kind of sharing their stories, because that's really what I wanted to hear. That's it's an interesting take. The last people that I spoke with about this were registrars and admissions officers, and I can tell you that their take on life is completely different than a lot of other people. Okay, so then we asked about what was the impact of the website on your school selection, and again, this surprised me that 59%, almost 60%, said that the website really was helpful in their school selection. You know, we went through a web design a couple of years ago, and if I had been able to go to the dean, who is a wonderful man but not particularly into the web, and said, you know, 60% of the students are saying it's really important that we have a good website, I probably would have asked for twice the money and the resources than what I had asked for. So I think that's an important statistic. What is good website design? Well, I know that you've all seen this, but it's one of my absolute favorite cartoons, one of my favorite Dilberts. Having been involved in many web design projects before, it is just so true. How long will that take?
Did you all have a committee that worked on it?
Oh.
Because we have a two-tier system.
Said the big C word.
That we have a web designer for the law school site, and then we have me, electronic services librarian for the library site.
Yep.
And I have full control over our site, whereas he had a committee, and it took forever for them to redo their website and come into production. I just had to talk to my director of public services. We were like up and running in half the time, so I was just wondering how you all dealt with it.
Yeah, a few gray hairs up here. Pardon me?
2 years our committee has been working on it.
We just hired a full-time web person for the library partially because of that. I mean, and now we can move our agenda ahead a little faster, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, we had different needs too, because our main page, I guess, is like yours, is very graphic intensive and it's very slow to load. And we decided at the library that since we're focusing on students who are researching, that we have to have ours very tight, very clean. And we have the graphics to make it pleasing, but absolutely no photos or anything loading in to make it really fast.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've read statistics that say that the optimum number of members on a committee is 7, but you know what it really is? 1. So what a good website is obviously a matter of opinion. I asked 6 student employees, they're all computer type guys, and the staff to go out and find the best and the worst of school websites. And I didn't give them any guidelines. It could be graduate, professional, international. It didn't matter a bit. And I asked them to tell me why. Well, a student and a staff picked the exact same website. Now, I'm not going to tell you where it is, but neither one of them had any ties to the school or the state. And so, number one, it's a hell of a coincidence, but number two, it's interesting that, you know, the complete different perspectives. The student was very interested in access to the information. He said to me, look, you know, the homepage had 1 million links. It was one of the portal designs, and it has a gajillion links on the homepage. But he said, I can go here, I click here, I go here, I've got it. I've got contact information, I go here, I go here. Everything was just like this for him because it was all within a click or two of the homepage. Okay? Now, the staff, on the other hand, was more interested in kind of the overall look and feel. The site had a picture of a building. Well, pictures of buildings, I'm sorry, it's a little boring. We all have buildings. And it was not a very visually attractive site, but it worked for the student. Most students indicated that more than 3 clicks to information was too much, and the staff were drawn to sites with pictures of people. I don't have time to go into the quotes. As usual, I kind of get off on tangents, but there were some excellent quotes that came out of this about what people were and weren't attractive to in sites, but the bottom line is that the students were really interested in quick, easy access to information. And that's really what we care about, is what the students wanted. Well, I had this little game, but I'm not sure that we're going to have time to play it, so we're going to have to skip it. But you do have to listen to this sound bite. Now, I have pretty good students, and I asked them to get me a game show sound bite. I said something like, you know, you are the weakest link, goodbye, or the Jeopardy, or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, something. So I'm not even sure that this will, you can hear it, but let's see if we can get it to play. Oh, shoot, I didn't I bet you it's not there. Oh, dang it, I probably just hosed it. Oh, well. It didn't work, but it's this real awful MIDI It's just the worst thing you've ever heard. It's like a person picking out Jeopardy on a piano. Do, do, do. It's awful. This is what they give me. Okay, so we're going to have to skip over this, but it really is kind of interesting. I did this at another presentation, and I gave the audience members a goal of trying to find the admission deadlines on the government websites, because of course it's easy to pick on the government because it was right after tax time. Last time I did this, it was great. Everybody's like, yeah, their site's terrible. And the goal was, of course, to try to find something within 3 clicks. And on these sites, we gave up. I had 2 different people. They gave up. It was like 6, 7 clicks, and we were running out of time, so we had to move on. They could not find the information. Of course, I would not let them use the search engine, and I would not let them use the sitemap. They could just do it from links from the homepage. They could not find the information that they were after. It was really interesting, but we don't have time. Okay, why are these questions important? Well, I don't know if you've looked at this survey. There's a ton of surveys out there about web usage. I happen to like the Pew Internet Report because they do regular surveys. They survey every 6 months. So it's a very short time period that they're looking at instead of a year, because, you know, a web year is what, 4 months or something these days. In fact, we probably have gone through one since we started this presentation. So I like them because they do a survey in the spring and then they do another survey in the fall, and they look at how the data has changed. Well, in their report that was out in February of 2001, based on data from November and December of 2000, 16 million people gained internet access. That's a huge number of people that got online in a very short period of time. In about 6 months, 16 more million people got online. And what they found is that whereas it used to be that the people who had internet access were white males with a fairly significant income, it's not that way anymore. It's the average everyday people. The demographic board has been pretty well wiped clean. It's lower income people, you know, minorities, people with children, women. And so what their conclusion is that the internet population looks a whole lot more like the everyday population. And so we really need to be targeting these groups of people. How can you use our results? Well, we are going to finish a little early, I'll be darned. I just realized that this is the last slide. We could do the internet thing, or we could just leave. The top 3 reasons that a school is selected should be really emphasized when you're designing your website. And remember, those top things were the national reputation of the program, the strength and reputation of the faculty, the financial aid package, and the tuition and fees. Those are very easy to emphasize on your web. The other ones are a little harder. In-state tuition, close to family, you know, it's pretty hard to put those up. The 3 most important items to find on a website should also drive how your website is designed. And remember that those were the degree programs provided, curriculum information, contact information, nebulous as it is, admission deadline, tuition and fees. And remember what the students are saying. Put them within the first 2 clicks. Because if they have to look very hard, they're not going to look. I'm the same way. And you know, the other thing though is you really have to balance that. I'm thinking back to what they said about the graphics. How they want everything within the first 2 clicks. They want it now. They don't. They're very impatient, but yet they want graphics. So it's that balance, trying to please them. Remember that we're in a transitionary period. More and more students. You know, think back to the Pew, the internet research that I showed you. More and more people are coming online. They look more and more like the everyday population. More and more people are doing web research. I look at my own parents who a year ago didn't have a computer. I hope you're out there, guys, in Hartwell. Hope it's raining. And yet they just bought a new mattress by doing the research on the internet. You know, they researched it. They found that, you know, the whole deal was all internet driven. And a year ago, they didn't know how to point and click. So there's no question that people are becoming more and more web savvy, and these are the people that we're trying to attract to our schools. So that's all I have to say. Here's how you can get a hold of us if you're interested. Even if you're not, you can get a hold of us. Lance Lundquist is the graduate student who helped us with the actual doing. We made him use SPSS, and he's still speaking to us. And so I wanted to say a special thanks to him. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yeah, because we do have time.
I guess I'll start with some comments and then have a question.
Sure.
Survey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I don't know, there's different companies out there that do these one-day web design classes, and I would suggest go to one. Don't hesitate to do it. I've gone to a couple of those one-day seminars. I learned a lot about designing websites, and one of them is I might challenge you on one of your next slides here. You talk about the 10-second rule.
Mm-hmm.
People in the classes that I've been to have actually said it's more like anywhere from 3 to 5 seconds.
Is that right?
And the point is, he talks about, and this is why I like this, because I'll never forget this. He says most internet users are what we call windshield wiper people. Click, 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 click.
Mm.
You know, they do a search, they go there, and boy, that 3 to 5 seconds, if they don't see what they want, click, they're back here. Click, click, click. And that's the way people would use the internet today. You use it that way. Don't deny it. You do. I mean, if you're doing a search engine, you go to some website, boy, it doesn't take long. And if you don't see what you want to see in that short period of time, you're out of there.
Okay, let me just make one quick comment about that, because we did discuss that at length in the previous conference that I went to. And my counterpoint to that is that's true when I'm looking for generic information, like I'm looking for a way to research something, and I know that there are a cajillion websites that have that information, but if I go to a website and I know that that is the only place that I can get that information, I'm going to be more patient.
Yeah.
And I'll probably wait that 4 seconds instead of the 3 before I bail out.
And we are admittedly specialized here in the sense that, yes, you know, now I don't know what the total number of law schools are that you're fighting against, but I mean, if, you know, if they said law schools and there's 2,000 of them out there, they're going to play some windshield wiper game with you. People were talking about committees and web design. These people in these seminars that I've been to suggested that, first of all, the website should not be designed by one person. Most likely, like I said, some of these schools have said you're a web designer, you hired a web designer, and I know I'm designing our website a little bit, and I know I've got caught in this right here. I don't know about the content.
Sure.
I should be responsible for content. There's somebody else who should be responsible for content. And sometimes when it comes down to even the graphics, you know, they say a web designer is not necessarily a graphic artist either. So they always say there's a graphics artist, a web designer, you've got a couple of people dealing with content out there, you know, and that's, those people need to be all involved in that. I guess my question is on your survey, you know, we talked about the 68% numbers, and then later on you started talking about some of the students who were picking schools based on close to family, in-state tuition. Out of that 68%, did you ever have any idea what would be considered resident versus non-resident students?
Which was the 68% now?
That used the internet to do research.
Oh, that used the internet? Did we know if they were resident or non-resident at their school?
There were some implications later on when they said these people were picking schools based on close to family. You started thinking, is that 68%?
No. What we did was actually you'd have to look at the way the survey was designed. The generic questions like why did you pick your school were included. They were inclusive for everybody. And then at some point we asked them, if you didn't use the internet for research, don't continue with the survey.
I think it was about question 17. There was a place, if you had not done internet research to select your school, you were done with the survey. Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Well, thanks for attending. It's so kind of everyone to stick it out until 4 o'clock. Please fill out your evaluations and leave them for us.